We're at the 2025 Western Australian Livestock Research Council Livestock Matters Forum, and I'm with Andrew Whitelaw from episode 3. How are you, Andrew?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. I'm fantastic. Look at this view.
Before we get started, mate, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so we're on a podcast. We've been running it for 303 episodes as we speak. We're running it for 5 years, and it started off just as we were stuck in COVID. Me and my colleague were talking to each other on the phone, talking to clients, talking to people in the industry, and we thought, why don't we just record this as if we're in the pub? So quite a lot of our early podcasts did involve a bottle of wine, but
Fantastic.
We just have independent conversations with people who are knowledgeable about their field. We've had everyone from farmers doing new experimental stuff, to Bob Carter, to Julie Collins, to David Littleproud, and everyone in between. And what we're just doing is really just taking advantage of the fact that there are so many people in agriculture that you can get such good stories from them, because there is so many, like we've done 300 episodes and we've not even touched upon 10% of all the interesting stories in agriculture.
And the great thing about people in ag too is that they're so open and sharing.
100%.
Now that's what you've been doing today. You've been sharing, you're a market analyst.
Yeah, my day job is analysing markets, and I suppose that's why we do the podcast, because my day job is so boring. I have to do something that's interesting.
I find it fascinating, mate. Now, you've been sharing some of your market analysis of recent times, and one of the first things you talked about was black swan events. Can you tell me what a black swan event is, and then maybe what you think the top 3 black swan events that have affected the markets in the last 12 months were?
So I guess we all know the white swan,
Yep.
the normal colour of swan. We're probably saying the wrong thing in WA that has black swans, but the black swan event is typically an event that just comes out of nowhere, you're not expecting it, and it changes things. So black swan events, really what we're talking about is a rare event that drives markets or drives anything really.
And often there's a shock, whether it be positive or negative, that's
negative.
associated with that.
It's just something that comes out of nowhere, you're not expecting it, just like you don't expect to see a black swan. Because they're white.
Last 12 months, top 3.
Oh, 12 months, right. You give me a hard challenge because there's been so many. And this is the thing.
It's rich, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. In the past, black swan events were rare. Now black swan events are becoming the norm.
It's like Tuesday.
Just Tuesday. But what we're seeing is probably, let's talk about the last couple of years in general, yeah? Big black swan events. Trump. Clearly, big event, love him or hate him, having a huge influence on markets, whether agricultural or other markets, just a huge impact because he comes in and he writes a tweet and then the market reacts. So that is that black swan event. I actually knew, I'd said for about 2 years that Trump would win the election prior to it, but the things he does, it causes many black swan events. Then you've got Putin invading Ukraine. Most people didn't expect he would actually do it. We thought that society was beyond those type of big countries attacking each other, but that caused markets to go through the roof. So we saw things like fertilizer prices go through the roof. We saw grain prices go through the roof. But yeah, just unexpected black swan events. And then there's been a whole bunch of little ones like Israel attacking Iran. They decide one day we're going to attack Iran. The next day, energy prices go absolutely bonkers through the roof, which has a flow-on effect because agriculture is driven by energy. Our grain prices are driven by the energy market. Our fertilizer prices, because fertilizer is just natural gas, is driven by energy. So when the energy market goes up, agricultural commodities also go up. So just these sort of things, it's a 12-hour event when Israel attacks Iran, and it has this potential to flow through to everything. So if you think about that, all these little events, the Houthi attacking shipping, Albanese's government banning live sheep exports, doing water buybacks, just all sorts of things just coming out of nowhere. And that is the black swan event. But they are becoming more and more common because the world is becoming more volatile. And the good thing about it is, it gives me something to talk about. So.
Overall, though, the market will remain fairly consistent in that it will go up and it will go down.
Markets, and if anyone ever says to you, we're at a new pricing level and this is the new norm, they're talking nonsense. Markets cycle up, they cycle down. It's like a wave, like you're surfing. You never know, it's going to crash down at some point. So at the moment, we're in a particularly good period for the moment for things like lamb and cattle, but they will come back down. Then they'll go back up and they'll come back down. We've got to just play along with that sort of trajectory, because that's what happens. And yeah, just markets do their own thing. And from our point of view, I've had to use my episode 3 hat as an analyst. We look at markets all day long and sometimes all night long, because it's what we love. But what we want farmers to do is we want to simplify that market intelligence, so that farmer, he can just look at it and say, oh, here's 5 dot points on what has happened in the grain market in the last week. Boom, takes me 20 seconds to read it, and I know exactly what. I could write 5,000 words for someone, but I know you're the same as me. We're all time sensitive. The farmer is time sensitive. The business banker is time sensitive. Everyone is time sensitive. So if we can just condense things into an understandable format for anyone, and that's why we see markets, they seem like a complex thing, but I think we can simplify it to make it understandable for everyone.
And sometimes we think there are triggers to the market that will affect it that maybe won't have any impact at all. And your contention is that the new importing of American beef, it's being talked up by a lot of politicians, but you don't think that the import of American beef is going to have much impact on our market at all?
I think it will have next to no impact. I think I've got 2 thoughts on it, negative and positive.
That's a real crystal ball there, so let's go into it.
So let's say, for instance, we've got cattle prices in Australia which are low compared to the US.
Yep.
So if you're an Australian consumer, Australian supermarket, you are going to be more inclined to buy Australian beef, which is, for all our listeners, the best beef in the world, as we all know.
He said it right there, folks.
For all our British farmers, they're also the best in the world.
He said it right there, folks.
But the reality is, you don't buy something for a higher price if you've got a good quality alternative. Yep. So why is US meat going to come into Australia when we're already cheaper? The supermarket's going to buy it from here. They're not going to buy it from the US. So we do already have a little bit of beef coming into Australia. So the sort of media claims that we've reversed the ban are not quite true, because it's not banned. We just don't, in large quantities, they've just got to prove where that beef came from. They've got to have the traceability, because the US takes cattle from Canada and Mexico, fattens them, and then processes them. Mexico has a lot of disease issues with its animals, but for the majority, you're buying cattle from the US, you don't know if that cattle is an American beast, a Canadian beast, or a Mexican beast. So that creates a huge traceability issue. But going back to it, they're not going to import much more than they already do, because it's not financially viable, and that's what drives things. That's not to say in 10 years' time, their herd might have rebuilt and they might have volume to export, and we've opened it up for them. But for me, and here's where I sort of look like I'm sitting on the fence here, I can see 2 things. One, it's the principle of it. And us Scottish people are well known for being all about the principle, and it's a principle of, are we using biosecurity, which we have the strongest biosecurity in the world almost. We only have to watch Border Force on the TV to see how tough it is. Everyone seems to be scared. My mum, my aunt, when they came over a couple of months ago, they were worried if their Haribo would get taken off them. So they didn't want to get a fine. And they also didn't want to end up on TV. But that's just the perception Australia has of being extremely stringent on biosecurity.
And that does come as a cost to farmers, but it gives us some reassurance in the market.
It gives us market access as well, because people look at us and say, I can go, the Japanese consumer, Chinese consumer, I can see that little logo of Australian made, and I can say, it's going to be good, it's going to be disease free, fantastic. And to give you an example, foot and mouth disease has been experienced in a lot of countries around the world. The last, here's a bit of trivia for you, Australia has had foot and mouth disease, but more recently than Australia having foot and mouth disease, we've had the bubonic plague. So that tells you how good our animal welfare is and our animal disease control is, that bubonic plague was more recent in Australia than foot and mouth disease. So there's a trivia thing for next time you're at the pub. But
So I'm more worried about the plague now, guys.
don't go to Sydney, because that's where it was.
Oh, that's okay.
But one of the key things here is that I've said that it's a principle that we shouldn't be negotiating our biosecurity away easily.
Yep.
On the flip side, let's step back from agriculture 1 second, yeah? And say, yes, we want agriculture to do well, but we also want the entire Australian economy to do well.
Because it does have a huge impact on agriculture, doesn't it? At the moment, the red meat market is softening slightly domestically.
And
It's a price
demand.
It's a price demand.
But
thing.
price is going. But if we look at it from like a purely economics point of view and a pure just numbers point of view, okay, we say US, yes, you can bring your beef in easily, knowing that they're not going to do it anyway because it's financially not viable. But then the US says, okay, we'll reduce our tariffs on pharmaceuticals, we'll reduce our tariffs on steel and aluminium, and that makes our economy stronger. So it is important that we don't just protect agriculture. You want to protect the entire sort of economy. So bearing in mind, Trump is only in for another 3 years, so they're not going to import much beef. I'll take any bets if anyone wants to take that they will not massively increase their beef imports into Australia. There'll be somebody else in Parliament in the White House in 3 years' time. We'll just change the rules back again. So if it keeps aluminium being sold, if it keeps the pharmaceuticals getting sold, if it keeps money coming into our economy, that money coming to our economy might be spent on Wagyu, Angus, lamb, wine.
And affluence is really important in markets in order to buy beef, isn't it? How important is affluence in the Asian market with take-up of Australian beef and lamb?
It is paramount. It is, I cannot be any more clear on that, it is paramount that we have wealth. Not just us in Australia. Australia is an extremely wealthy country, but we want as many people around the world to be wealthy. Because one of the things we see around the world is the world wants a Western diet, but the world cannot afford a Western diet in many parts of the world. So what we want to do, when we see this all the time, is as GDP per capita rises, and that's a good representation of wealth in a nation, as it rises, the demand for protein rises. And most protein comes from an animal. So what we see is this linear trajectory. As people have more money, they will spend more money on meat. That's one of the first things they increase. So us helping countries around the world become wealthy, and a lot of people will say, well, we don't like giving aid to Papua New Guinea or Thailand or Philippines. We're not doing that out of niceness. We are doing that, one, for security purposes. It creates friends. Secondly, it creates wealth in those countries. We are creating the customers of the future by increasing wealth. So the more wealthy people around the world who are eating meat, the more demand for meat, because supply isn't going to increase that massively. So then we create this real value proposition of saying the world will buy our meat because they've got money and the affordability to buy it. So we are creating a luxury product. Beef and red meat in general is a luxury product for most people in the world. But to have a luxury product, you have to have people with money to buy it. So wealth is paramount. Hopefully I'll get it one day.
So things are looking really bullish for the lamb and the beef markets, particularly.
Yep.
Chicken and pork are continuing to go up, and they're continuing to be enjoyed by the domestic market, particularly.
Yep.
Another area of yours that you like to have a scratch in is grain. How are things looking for the grain growers?
In all fairness, most of my area is grains. But it's a really interesting thing, and I've done a little bit of research in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to talk about the far future.
Okay.
The kids and grandkids.
Yep. That's
That's
what we farm for, after all, isn't it?
Well, exactly. But we are sleepwalking, and potentially sleepwalking into a problem.
That sounds contentious.
And I won't be liked by some people for saying it, but I'm not here to say things that people like. I'm here to say what I think people need to know.
Yep.
I don't know, Tim, how many presentations have you been to where people have said, we need to feed 10 billion people?
I keep being hit with that every time I come up with regenerative grain growing or something different or something odd.
It's
we always straight away get the comment, we need to feed 9 billion or 10 billion people.
It's a
That's
noble.
not actually the case, is it?
It's noble. It's definitely noble, Tim, for us to want to feed the world.
Yep.
But at the same time, we also have to make money.
Yep.
It's all very well being good, but making money allows you to be good. However, we are in agriculture, we love production.
Yield. We measure everything by yield. Not profit.
But we love yield. And generally, it's changing a little bit because I think we've made it a little bit more interesting to talk about markets. But in the past, you would not get people listening to a markets update. You would get people to listen to, oh, here's a new way we can get an extra 200 kilos for a wheat. Oh,
here's a solution in a bag.
yeah.
Buy it now.
Buy it now before it goes. But, so aiming for 10 billion, and that's what we need to aim for.
Yep.
However, that 10 billion doesn't stay 10 billion because we get to 2050, 2060, and it will hit 10 billion. So another, what's that, $1.5 billion more than now, or 2 billion more? I think we're 8 billion people on the planet. It doesn't stay like that forever, and it doesn't keep increasing. It tapers off, and it starts coming back down.
Yep.
So let's say we get to 2080, 2100. The two of us will be down the beach, relaxing, or we might not even be here, most likely. But
I'll be here. Don't worry.
I'm Scottish. My life expectancy is not that long. But it tapers off to 6 billion or 8 billion based on the newest projections.
Yeah. Because a lot of affluent countries are inverted.
Especially places like that. How many people do you know are having 5 kids?
Yeah.
Not many. So what we end up with is this potential where we have increased our productivity, and we still have huge ways in grains of increasing our productivity. There's huge opportunities. We produce for 10 billion. Great. For that 10, 20 years where there's that high population. But then what happens when we're still producing for 10 billion, or we've created the capacity to produce for 10 billion? We've created the technology, the seeds, the agronomy, the genetics, and then it falls to 8 billion, even 9 billion. We have a mismatch between supply and demand. And we have oversupplies all the time. So when we produce massive crops, 2020, 2021 in Australia, we produced way more than the domestic market needed. At the same time, large parts of the world produced lots of grain, but our domestic market, collapsed. Domestically, our feed price was very low compared to the rest of the world. And we've had those sort of mismatches in the past. But we're not talking about now a mismatch for a year. We're talking about an oversupply that is consistent for years and years. And we actually only have to go back, funnily enough, 100 years again. So we're talking about 100 years in the future, but we can go back 100 years in the past. We had 1920s, Australia was producing huge crops. Canada, huge crops. US, South America, all huge crops. We oversupplied the market massively. And what happened? Farmers were making no money because the price collapsed. Then what happened is the Australian government made a decision. They said, we're going to put effectively a bounty on wheat. We'll give you this guaranteed price. One of the worst things you can do when you're pricing at an oversupply is try and produce yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So what happened was all of these farmers produced more and more grain because there was a guaranteed price that was above the market. The government nearly collapsed in Australia because they couldn't afford it. And whenever the government's involved in a market, they can give, but they inadvertently will eventually take it away. So they took it away. This oversupply was even worse. We actually created a bigger oversupply. So the market prices came further down. And so it was probably, and I'd love to do some research if I've got the time to look back at 1920s agriculture, huge amount of foreclosures of agricultural land because we oversupplied. But this is the issue we've got in 100 years time from now. If we produce too much, because we're aiming for a 10 billion population, we've got the technologies, and then we have a 6 billion population, which are some of the projections. So what we actually have to now start thinking about is, and it sounds really hard for organizations to think beyond even our own lifespans, in effect, but we need to actually start thinking, well, what are the land use changes going to be? Yeah. So I don't like to be too negative, because I think this, again, It's negative if we only look at it in one way.
It's negative if we do nothing.
Exactly.
It's negative if we don't listen, if we go la 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 la.
It'll be right. She'll be right.
Yeah.
So this is what we've got to start thinking. And just off the top of my head, I can think of a few options. One, biofuels.
Yep.
Let's get more of that grains, more of that canola into biofuels. Get it into a car or a machinery or whatever else it is may be, so that we have a new demand driver. Large parts of the world already do that. In Australia, we just really don't. Animals.
Bring animals back into grain.
Well, today, you heard me talking today and how positive I was about cattle. Yesterday I did the same talk, but about sheep, and I'm very positive about sheep. The best way to value add grain, for a farmer at least, is to stick it down a beast's throat. Because when you think about it, most of our grain in Australia, where does it go?
Straight down a sheep's throat, straight down a beast's throat.
Whether it's here, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's somewhere, most of it is going somewhere to be fed to an animal. So you can do it here. Then we can have the nice steak that we talked about that was clean, green, and sell that instead of selling the grain. So that's in the future. But then I think what we might see is some more of that marginal land that has gone into cropping might come back and go into livestock, or it might even go into forests. Or it might go into renewables, solar panels, wind turbines, other things that can make money from that land. But I think we are, in theory, got this risk of sleepwalking into consistent oversupply.
And it seems to be a simple solution. It seems to be the D word, diversification.
Always very, like, I'm a risk analyst at career, ex-trader, but it is the 101 of markets. You go to your superannuation advisor, what are they going to say? They're going to say, invest everything in Tesla or everything in Bitcoin? No, they're going to say, spread it. A basket of things. Look at the Irish. They used to eat a lot of potatoes. They had the potato famine. And what happened? They had to disperse around the world because they had become reliant on one food crop. So there's lessons in everything. But the main lesson is diversify, but do it well. Do things that you can do well and that you enjoy. And I think that's a good lesson for us all.
Andrew, thanks
Tim,
for sharing your wisdom and your lessons. Get onto his podcast. The link is in the description. If you're not on it already, you probably are. And if you like this kind of video, don't forget, hit the little subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. We'll see you with something else soon. And hopefully I'll see you on the channel again, mate.
Definitely.